Okay, so today I'm going to show how to replace a burner on a water heater. First things first, you want to turn off the gas. So if it's in line, it means it's on. If it's perpendicular, then it is off. So gas is off, that's the first step. We're gonna take this off. On mine, I had an issue with the pilot tube. So I was smelling gas and found out that the pilot tube compression fitting, it's called a ferrule fitting, that was faulty. And so I went to Ace Hardware, tried to replace this guy, and came up with nothing. But they had the whole assembly, and the guy sold it to me for $10 because it was an incomplete set from another package deal. So I really only need this piece, but he sold me the whole thing, so I'm going to show how to replace that today. So you have two electrical connections right here. This, you might think like you have to pull each wire out. You really don't. You just pull the whole assembly out. So that you just wiggle that out. Once that's out, that's out. Obviously, you have to disconnect the pilot tube. This one you have to be real careful with the reinstall, because if you strip the inside of this box, then you're going to be dealing with gas leaks pretty much constantly, and you're going to have to replace the whole box. So that has to be sure when you put it back in. Definitely make sure that it's lined up properly. This guy just pops out. You can see that there, pretty easy. And then I'm going to go ahead and get a wrench on this and disconnect the main gas line. Alright, so this just falls down, and then you can pull it out like that. Okay, now that everything is disconnected, my model has two bolts on both sides of the burner plate. You gotta take those out. So I'm just taking these ones out one at a time. I'll get them on the other side next. There's a convenient little notch there too, so I can place my wrench. Okay, so now that all that's loose, I can just kind of wiggle this thing out. So you just pull out the burner, the old burner, set it aside. And it's pretty dirty in there, so I might just get like a shop vac and vacuum it out. And I think there's also like a filter in here, and I've seen plumbers, they'll clean the filter with compressed air, whatever works, but honestly just get some of that dirt out while you have the access and while you have the opening there. All right, there, that little spot, that is an important feature. Essentially what that is there's this tip on the burner right there, and that tip inserts into there so that it ensures that the burner is centered in the water heater. And that's really important so that heat doesn't, favor one side or the other. So make sure that's lined up when you get that, when you put the new one in. So when you're sliding this thing in, like again, you got to get that lined up. Definitely make sure this is tight, because there's like a rubber gasket that seals that in, and that's really important for the safety, because there's an open flame in there. And so if in the case, we're going to check for leaks when we're done, but if there is ever a leak, the open flame is contained inside there, and it's only going to burn up what's in there. So then you just have to reconnect everything. I'm going to start by reconnecting the main gas line, and tighten that down with a wrench. Just make sure that this line goes in straight, and make sure when you're threading it, it's perfect. It's got to be lined up perfectly. Some plumbers will put like a little bit of oil on there. I'm not going to do that today, but just check the thread every time. If you start tightening it and it's not tightening properly, then back it out and try again. It's got to be a perfect alignment on this one. So, and the other thing to note is that since this is a compression fitting, it's kind of like a one-time thing. So if you take this off at any point, you may have to just replace this ferrule fitting. So So I actually had to use 2 wrenches, one to just apply a little bit of upward pressure on this guy. He just had a hard time getting that first thread on, but with just a little bit of upward pressure from one wrench while the other wrench was working, it seemed to work. This is also on mine, a 7/16. I don't know if that's like a standard size, but so again, for fear of like stripping this thing, I stopped about that depth, so that's what it looks like. There's a little bit coming out still. Once you feel like pretty significant resistance, stop. Don't over tighten that because you could strip the threads. Plug this one back in, and this guy goes right in here. Click that in. Yep. And then now, once those electrodes are plugged in, you can look through the window and test your spark igniter without any gas, and you should be able to see a spark. So we know that that's working properly, the thermal dial or the thermal coupling or whatever it's called. Okay, so now I have my rag. I've created just like a soapy water solution. Guys use like spray bottles, but I don't have one, so I'm just gonna use this. Just squeeze it out a little bit. And then we're gonna put our gas back on, turn our gas back on, and you just rub a little bit of this on all the connection points where there's gas. And we're just gonna test for leaks. If there is a leak, you'll see like this spot where it's leaking, it'll just be firing off like little bubbles. So that's how we're gonna test that. The valve's on. I'm gonna wipe some on the valve. Make sure this is a newly installed valve that I just put in today. So I'm gonna check that. Make sure there's no leaks there. And we're gonna come down here. Test this connection just one more time. And then we're gonna test these 2 connections that we just did. Now with the Pilot, it might not bubble in the off position. So on my old one, I knew it was bad because I put the solution on, the soap solution, and then when I would click at the Pilot and then press it in, bubbles would fly out of there. And you can see there's a little bubble flying out now. When I pressed in Pilot, it was pushing gas from the line into the Pilot tube. Now I just put some more soap on there. When I press that in, you can hear it, but there's no more bubbles, so that's good. That means that we're good to go. I just tightened this up a little bit. It's a good idea to just take a dry rag and get rid of these soap bubbles. Some soaps contain like salt, and salt can kind of corrode, and you don't want that. So once you're done testing, you can wipe that down and you're good to go. Now that I know that I don't have any gas leaks, I can throw it on Pilot, start it up, and then put it on my hot setting. Got my blinking status light, means it's good. And then we've got flame. Look at that, beautiful. And now I'm just gonna put my cover back on. I'm not a professional plumber, so take everything in this video with a grain of salt. That being said, I'm a DIYer. I like to do things myself. I like to learn. I like to get better. I'd say that anything can be done with a little bit of research. You can do almost anything. Just think about the person who has that job. They learned too, you know. So you can learn this stuff. It just gets a little scary when you're dealing with gas and stuff. It definitely needs to be taken seriously. Because it could be dangerous. If you feel super uncomfortable with it, then just don't do it. Call a professional, but a lot of the stuff really isn't that difficult. So yeah, do your research, make sure you know what you're doing. If you like this video, maybe I can make more DIY videos. I just got done doing the plumbing in my entire house. We did PEX plumbing, so it was a ton of fun. I was super nervous to do it, but I figured it out, and I saved like $8,000. So yeah, if you like this video, comment below, like it, subscribe. Maybe I'll make more videos.